Invisible Experts podcast.
Welcome everyone to this new episode of the Invisible Experts podcast. If you have been following the conversation around AI lately, you have probably noticed something. There is a lot of noise, a lot of hype, and a lot of fear, I suppose, and also a lot of confusion. We hear that AI is thinking that is replacing humans, in quotation marks, that it knows everything, but very rarely do we stop and ask a much simpler question. What is actually going on behind the scenes? Because the reality is, most people today are using AI, or at least trying to, but without really understanding what it is, what it isn't, and how to use it well. So today's conversation is about cutting through that noise. And I'm really pleased to be joined by Sachith Gunasekra. Yeah, is that well pronounced?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
exactly.
A senior AI engineer and LLM researcher, someone who works directly with these systems at a technical level, but is also deeply interested in how they connect to real world challenges, including policy and a little bit sustainability. What I found particularly interesting in our previous conversation is his perspective on the gap between how AI is being developed and how it is actually understood and used. And of course, the need to for clearer guidance that some people can engage with it in a more meaningful way. So today we are going to break things down in simple terms. What AI really is, what it isn't, what it can actually do, whether it fails, and how you can start using it more effectively in your work or organization. So, Chief, great to have you with us. Welcome.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Andres. Thank you for inviting me. I definitely start to share some of the as you said, the concepts of AI and the misconceptions around it.
Fantastic. Okay, so Chief, to start with, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you into AI, especially from the technical and research perspective?
Yeah, so I started off from a computer science background. That's what my bachelor is in. I specialized in computer science from the University of Kelaniya in Sri Lanka. Um, I have some experience building systems that are more deterministic, where you have if, this, then, that programmatic principles. But what really fascinated me during my studies was about how you can make things learn from data rather than you having to decide what's going on, what the system should do. And that I would say that curiosity was what actually made me lead towards machine learning and then into the broader area of AI. So I started my internship here in a Sri Lankan company, Core Search Global, and my main frontier of work was researching these large language models, as we call them today, which we refer or interchangeably use as modern AI. And that's my entry into this fundamental area of AI in the technical field.
Fantastic. Thank you for this one. So we met at his event, right? A very interesting space. And I remember that you mentioned your interest in connecting AI with policy and sustainability, right? So I was wondering what really motivated you and that shift from purely technical work to thinking about a little bit broader and its broader impact.
So I have been in the technical implementation of AI for almost 3 years, and so HISA was where we met was last year. So from respective to that, I was already working for about 2 years in the fundamental area. And then during a workshop that I was conducting with one of the students for a university audience, one of the students actually asked me, uh, what do you think about the ethics revolving around AI and its application to law and medicine? Now, that was a question that I haven't even thought of. I was building systems impacting those areas for professionals working in those areas, but ethics was the least of my concerns, and that was one of the major turning points, I would say, for me to start thinking about who it really affects and what AI is really doing. I mean, it's easy to build these systems. Speaking from an engineering perspective, it's very easy to build these systems. But how it affects people, that's what's concerning these days. So at HISA, one of the conversations that I wanted to have around people working and people who has much more experience with policy and sustainability was regarding AI. We are building AI from all aspects of the world, from different nations, from different countries. And these systems really impact everywhere, everyone using them. And the frameworks of policy and how they are being governed right now, the laws regarding how they should be used are set by individual nations, even though the systems themselves are built by different individual nations, and they affect all around the globe. So my concern is that how can you build an ethical framework or a framework that can guide these systems that's harmonized around the world, so that builders like myself are able to build these systems much more responsibly and ethically, because the systems that we build essentially are going to impact everybody in the world, and not just one part. And one part where the laws are maybe loosely set, and one part of the world where the laws and governance around it are too strict. That's one of the major concerns that I had with AI. And
That's
it's
fantastic, man. And is this something that perhaps you just maybe talk it through with your colleagues, like occasionally having a cup of tea or having a drink? Like, do you guys often talk about this? Like, hey guys, what we're doing is great, but how about the ethical part? And you have this kind of like maybe one-to-one conversations about the world and how can be better, Because, sometimes I have the impression that maybe there is a tendency to perceive engineers like this kind of like very intelligent human beings that focusing on creating new technology and stuff, but maybe we
yeah.
forget that they're also humans, they have fun, they think about this stuff, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, I see your point. Because most of the time we do spend building things, and as you said, just like how externally we are viewed as builders, w- we sometimes realize. I mean, we try to remind ourselves, "Come on, man, you guys are humans. You gotta think in a different perspective too." Um, so circling back to your original question, whether we really, have these discussions in a technical front, I'm sad to say no, not really when we are building systems.
Okay, okay,
um,
fair enough.
but I think these conversations really need to be brought towards a more, I would say, broader audience, and not just people working in policy only. They should be brought towards the engineers that are actually building their systems. So it's actually a great point that you bring.
Yeah, that's great, man. So I was wondering, like, of course, you guys either work for a big company, tech company, or maybe you just work independently and you produce or create products for big companies. And I was wondering, like, you specifically, who are concerned about this ethical framework, how do you manage sometimes or at times these maybe tensions in between selling a product but also selling the ethical framework that you bring about while building these kind of products? Or you just simply, you see what I'm saying? Because I was
Yeah.
thinking, how we can connect these ethical ethics with the, you know, economic part of it, right? Which is important. I mean, you create
Mhm.
products in order to sell it or,
Yeah.
to make it profitable.
It so yeah, definitely. Now, when we are building a product and trying to sell it per se, uh, the major concern is, does it achieve what it really needs to do, right? That's what we focus on, number one. So we create metrics and evaluation pipelines to first see whether it's solving the problem that the system was built for. That's
Okay.
the major concern. But when the systems need to be exposed towards real users or real world individuals, that's when we start talking about how the system responds. Is it being fair to everybody? Is it not being isolated towards a particular domain? That's when we start asking these questions.
Fantastic. And do you guys have like this kind of like maybe a group of KPIs in order to evaluate whether the product is achieving what you expect in the beginning? Like indicators in order to see its performance, its results, or
Well, I'm sure for so let me break this down. So I work in the engineering space, and there's also a business space.
okay,
My familiarity is towards the former, not the latter. So this business space is actually, I'm sure there's KPIs involved on what metrics need to be hit so that it's actually a good product. But talking towards the engineering end, we have metrics that we set internally to evaluate whether these systems are in fact uh, sellable or profitable, or um, actually solving what, like I said, solving what it needs to do, and it's like a really good product, whether it's a
yeah,
really
yeah,
good
yeah,
product.
of course. And give me an example just to simplify to the audience. You guys, as an engineering team, what kind of indicators used to evaluate its performance?
So with systems that have an AI chatbot involved, think of think of the response that you would get, right? So some of the indicators that we check for, whether the response given from the system is accurate, or and whether it's relevant to the question that the user has asked. That's one thing that we measure for. And we then check for other metrics such as, is it really helpful? Is it helping the user achieve what the user is trying to achieve? And is it, again, is it relevant to the conversation that the user is having? And one internal metric that we measure that probably is not in the user's helpful skill set, but something that we measure is when we are trying to answer a user's question in a system, we're not just blatantly giving out the answer. We are trying to curate the knowledge from an existing knowledge base and generate an answer for the user's question, because we need to be factually sound in order to be useful, right?
Yeah.
So we need to check whether we are essentially bringing in the correct information at the correct time so that the user will have a helpful answer. Helpful, factually grounded answer. So,
Fantastic. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
great, man. And I was wondering, like, would you think it's a good idea for organizations and businesses to, like, maybe separate, like, the business team and the engineering team? Do you think it's a good idea? Or
So that
maybe perhaps you see like engineers also have to be involved in the business side because you're, I mean, from my business perspective, as a businessman, as an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
I mean, we like this technical part, and I'm pretty sure the engineers gonna bring about other approach, other value for sales, for innovation. I
Mhm.
don't know, right? What do you think?
So here's the thing. I think we touched this point in a previous question, whether engineers are really humans or not. It's just that we we forget to know when to switch it on and switch it off at certain times. And that's a skill that we need to build. And when we discuss with product owners, um, sometimes the information that we bring can really throw off the conversation in a direction that we don't want it to go towards. And I face that. I mean, I've
Okay.
really experienced it. So I think it's, if you're able to balance it, that's great. That engineer should be part of the conversation. If not, it's best, in my opinion, that the business part of the company handles the conversation with the users, and there's a translation between the engineers and the product owners.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. So I just drift away because I was so interested about, how do you like shape your own thinking. So I thought it was very interesting to bring about these
Yeah.
things into the conversation. Let's frame then what AI really is and what it isn't. So let's start very simple because, no, it's not only my perspective, but what the reports illustrate. Last year we also like wrote a paper about it,
Mhm.
focusing on the sustainable sector. I mean, third sector, but they are focusing on sustainability, and we perceive that there is a lot of confusion around this. So in your own words, what is AI?
So AI is a very broad concept. But these days, we interchangeably use it for a very prominent, really captivating foundational concept of AI, which is large language models, short for LLMs. So uh, I'll try to stick to most. Stick mostly towards LLMs, but AI is actually using data, trying to learn things that you would not be able to program as if this and then that, like I said earlier, and then based on those learned information, predict predict certain things based on new data, new information, or new instances that it sees. So, like I said, but AI has become an interchangeable word for things like ChatGPT or Claude, and that's what we are referring to as AI these days.
Okay, fantastic. So
Yeah.
a lot of people, tend to think, okay, that AI thinks or knows things or even understands like humans do. But from a technical perspective, what is actually happening and what are people getting wrong?
So AI, AI is just learning from data, right? So it's learning from data, and when it's in use or when people are using it, it's just using everything that it has learned to predict something. And it's no different with the chatbots like ChatGPT that we see. So the underlying concepts or the technology is just the LLM models that are being communicated with. So to answer your question, no, AI do not think. It does not understand things the way that humans do, because all it is doing is using a collection of text that we feed into it, using what it has already learned, and then predicting the most statistically probable next word to it. So it's doing that over and over and over again until we get a nice, coherent piece of text out of it.
Yeah.
So, so if you if you were to see a parrot maybe at a zoo and see it saying the words over and over again, that it repeatedly saw people communicate, you wouldn't say it's thinking in terms of a language. You just know that it's repeating what it has already seen. Think of the same thing with AI, with LLMs. It's just repeating what it has already seen, but it's way more intelligent of predicting what word comes next.
Wow, that's a great analogy, man. Because what we did in order to come up with this kind of like general patterns or general questions, it was because throughout our piece of research, we basically use something which is called discursive analysis, right? So
Mhm.
we bring about a lot of, discourses through the social media, through the news, through blogs, even reports, in order to understand what people really think or what they perceive about AIs, right? So they have this tendency to think that, AI has knowledge. Yeah.
Okay.
So would it be fair to say that AI doesn't really have knowledge in the way we think about it? So how should we properly understand its capabilities?
No, that's interesting there because I wouldn't have met the audience that you really had met through your research about how people had perceived it. But it's really AI has knowledge, yes, but it's not recalling knowledge just the way that humans think about a past experience and say, oh, I learned this in a book here. That's not how it's learning. So it collectively has been trained on the entirety of the internet. So every piece of text that has been publicly available, it has seen, but it does not. I like exactly remember, okay, it was there in this particular space. I know it was in this particular person's blog. That's not how it remembers things. It just has learned from that specific text as well as the entirety of the internet. So it's not recalling certain things out of the, I mean, from a set of things that it has learned, like humans do. When we read books, we know we read it from that book and we know how to do it and so on. But what it's doing, the knowledge that it has, is again trying to predict, okay, based on what I have learned and what this user is asking for, this is the best token that I should give it to. And this is also one of the reasons that we see that these these AI systems give a very confident answer, and you feel like it's true. But if you do sometimes if you do a research on your own, you try to feel like there's something on off about this answer. And if you're an expert in that field, you'll definitely feel like, okay, there's something off about this answer that I need to get to the bottom of it. And that's because it's trying to repeat what it has learned, but it can make mistakes unless, again, unless like engineers like myself really make sure that the system is accurate and factually grounded. So, yeah. So
Because I
certainly that,
think, yeah,
yeah.
no, no, 100%. Yeah, that's a very well explained concept because there is a tendency that you use it as your sometimes counselor or your even people use it for business decisions or for decision making or for a piece of advice and so on. But what it really does, it cherry picks what
Yeah.
information is around and then it produces the answer based upon this, right?
Exactly. I mean, if I were to type in, or I mean, if I were to request for a certain decision or maybe a counseling advice, and you were to ask for the same advice, same concept, the answer will be completely off, completely different based on who's
Okay.
asking.
Yeah, yeah.
And that depends on um, that depends on what you type in into the system.
So, for instance,
Because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, for instance, in simple terms, right? Because before we were like, oh, just Google it. So you
Mhm.
just go to the search engine and then you find the information that you were looking for. And Google like was giving you a list of links according to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what AI offers them, is it the same concept? I mean, technically speaking, or is so different?
Um, okay. So if you're using a system that has no access to the internet, so I mean, I'm sure you have used ChatGPT. These days, it's doing an additional step of browsing the internet, right? So it's
Yeah.
trying to get the latest information. If you don't have that browsing step, it's not the same thing as getting as Googling it yourself. So
Okay.
because that way, otherwise, it's just like I said, it's just based on what you fed and the entirety of what it has been trained on. It's saying, okay, this word might be the most probable, statistical probable word to come for this person's user prompt, right? But if you have Google search or whatever search enabled in these systems like ChatGPT, Claude, and most frontier systems provide, then it's able to get some additional information and not just what the user typed in, but it's also doing a search and getting information from the internet. So the prompt itself has some additional information.
Okay. So I see. So it has to be, let's say, if we consider AI as an agent, it has to be fed.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think I didn't want to use that term, but since you brought the narrative into the agent term, so what we think about an AI or AI LLM and an AI agent are vastly different terms.
Oh, wow. Okay. What's the difference then? I mean, super
So
simple. Yeah.
super simple, yeah. So I told you, I mean, I pinpointed the difference where a system that has access to the internet and doesn't have access to the internet, right?
Mhm.
So a system that does not have access to it to an internet, that's just simply an LLM. It's using whatever you feed into it by typing in as a prompt, and it's predicting the next token. It's not doing anything. That is simply simple as that, just predicting the next token. It's nothing other than a statistical selector of the next word, right? But an AI agent has some sort of an intelligence based on the instructions that we have given to it. So, for example, ChatGPT is not an AI, it's an AI agent, technically. So Claude, as you use it, it's an AI agent. Grok is an AI agent. The frontier versions that we use through their platforms, they're AI agents because it's not just taking the prompt and giving you the best possible token predictor and then generating a coherent response. It's doing an additional step of searching the internet. So the searching part is where the agent is involved. So
Mm.
an agent is able to do something, whereas previously the AI was just doing a prediction. Here, the agent is actually doing something by searching the internet. And if you have connected it to your email, maybe send an email. So it has the capability of taking an action on behalf of you. So you're not doing the search online, you're just getting the AI agent to do it for you and give you the
That's
final answer.
that's crystal clear, man. Well explained. Yeah, because I was thinking AI could be like the text predictor, right?
Yeah,
When you text,
exactly.
and it tries to guess what you're gonna write.
Yeah,
But then AI
exactly.
agent would be like Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, that
Mm,
it goes this extra mile, right?
exactly. So they have these extra tools, as we call them, to do things that can actually be useful for day-to-day activities.
So what is the function then of an API? Because I think ChatGPT by itself, you cannot really order him or her, whatever. You cannot really order this AI agent to go through, let's say, your LinkedIn account and do
Mhm,
a post, but you need like this kind of, I don't know if I'm mistaken, API,
mhm.
like
Yeah,
a platform that connects. Do you
yeah.
understand? Sorry, I mean this is like
No,
super basic, but
No, you're right. So what API stands for is actually it's application protocol interface. So it's actually a connection. So it's a technical term that you actually referred to. But you're right. Um, so what we are trying to do with API is connecting applications, like you said, right? So how it brings the whole concept of AI and LinkedIn for that example matter. So we have an application ourselves, but we need to communicate with an AI, and we also need to communicate with LinkedIn to maybe do a post, right? So
Mhm.
an API is actually a bridge that helps us
Okay.
communicate with each of these individuals.
Okay.
So, say for example, you are communicating with your AI system. So this is not anything ChatGPT or anything. This is a system that you built on your own. So you are saying, okay, go ahead, write a post about my daily affirmation maybe, and then post it on LinkedIn. So you give it a basic starting point. So for it to write the post, it needs to communicate with an AI. So that's where we have the API to communicate with the AI system. So the AI system is maybe provided by the producers of ChatGPT, which is OpenAI. So maybe we are communicating with one of their models. So we communicate with the API through an API to the model with the model, get a response, that is the post that we need to post. Then through an API, we communicate with LinkedIn and we say, okay, post it on LinkedIn. So essentially, the API is like a bridge of communication that you have with different other systems. Um, it makes your application seem far more intelligent and more like an agent rather than just an LLM output.
Wow. Because I'm use N8N. I don't know if you,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
yeah, which is like basically an API, right?
Um,
Or
so
not really?
no, I mean, you are referring to N8N as you've been using the N8N platform to build workflows to get certain repetitive tasks, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And within N8N, you can actually communicate with different other applications. For example, you can maybe add OpenAI, and then you can communicate with an OpenAI agent or sorry, OpenAI model to get an LLM response. And then you can also connect your Google Calendar and then your LinkedIn
Correct.
and all of
Yeah,
those
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So under the hood, N8N is using APIs to interact
Ah,
with these
okay, I
different
see.
systems.
Okay, so this is
And
a okay,
yeah,
the concept is API, and then the platform is, for instance, NAN, right?
yeah, exactly. So
Correct.
N8N is giving you all the different blocks that you can use to build a workflow. And within those workflows, you're communicating with different systems. And to communicate with different systems, you need the API. And API is sort of the bridge that connects your N8N workflow with an external system.
Fantastic, man. Thank you. That was a very clear because, as I said, people like us who has been used it for our businesses or organizations, it's so important to understand also what's the purpose,
Mhm.
how we use, why you don't want to use it, and so on. So,
Yeah.
for someone who is totally new to AI, what is the best way to start using it in a practical way from your perspective?
So I'll say it in a way that I've gotten to use it. So I started, this AI models really came out in 2022 when I was during my undergraduate years. So the way that I used it then is vastly different from the way that I use it now. So for a person who's beginning, what you need to be focused or what you need to think about is what are the things that you are repetitively doing, for example writing an email, maybe doing a research, or maybe writing, and for an engineer coding. So those are the daily tasks that everybody is going to be involved in. how can you replace those repetitive tasks? And that's how you can get involved. So start with something simple. If you're completely new, start with something completely simple, like writing an email. That's the basic starting. So that's what I used to do when these systems came out. But these days they can do way more than just writing an email. But if it's completely new, that's the best place to start.
That's great, man. Thank you. So, there are so many tools right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, from your perspective, what are some of the most useful or accessible AI tools people can start with?
So let's start from beginner to expert, right?
Sure, sure, sure.
So for a beginner, I don't think you need to be using tools like N8N that we discussed earlier, building workflows that are much more sophisticated. So you first need to understand the feel of what these are and what their capabilities are, right? To know how they can help you expanded complex workflows. The best tool I would say is to maybe use something like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini to sort of get the feel of it. That would be a beginning point because that way you know what these systems can do and you have an understanding. And then you can work your way upwards. I mean, so N8N is going to be, I would say, once you're comfortable with using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all those starting point tools, you can shift to a workflow like N8N, especially if you're in a domain like business. That can really be helpful. You can use N8N to create workflows by, since you've used it, but for the general audience, it's like using a collection of building blocks to dictate what you're going to do.
Fantastic.
And yeah, those are some of the tools. But I mean, if I start talking about a list of things that we can use, I think the list is not going to end because there's so many AI tools coming out these
Of
days.
course.
So ChatGPT, Claude, those are general purpose. And you can start to make custom workflows. And these days, specialized applications come in for different things. For maybe photo editing, you get Photoshop AI. And then for creating music, you have Suno AI. So those specialized applications exist for your domain. But the starting point is there, and your personalized is an N8N. And I think Google introduced something recently called Opal, which is similar to N8N. And that's a little bit simpler than N8N. So you can also get to it, but it's only available in certain regions though.
What's the name? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
It's Opal.
Opal. Okay, great.
Opal. I really don't know what they're trying to mean through it.
Okay. No, but it's a great advice because like we now listen. I mean, we hear a lot about them. You say you're right. I mean, there are some who are very specific for some areas, work, task, or whatever. But then, for instance, you have ChatGPT, Copilot,
Yeah.
Gemini, Claude, of course, and then you have things like Perplexity,
Perplexity, yeah.
or Claw, right? Like CLAW. So what's
Yeah.
the difference among themselves? Because you said for
Uh,
general purposes, the typical Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, maybe Grok. I mean, they're kind of similar, right?
yeah, they're very similar. It's just that the provider is different. So Grok is
Eh,
owned by Elon Musk, or that's by OpenAI, and so on, right?
Okay, okay.
Um,
And then perplexity, is he also?
it's it's actually an advanced system, but it's similar. It's using an
Okay.
LLM, but it's not by one of these providers. Perplexity has access to the models from OpenAI, from Claude, from Gemini. So the model can be shifted. But what Perplexity excels at is doing research. It has the
Oh,
ability to find information from the internet really accurately and give you a report. Give you a report that's really helpful rather than what these ChatGPT and these systems are doing. So it's
And
much
Claw?
more focused.
Wow. And Claw?
So Claw is I think you're referring to the Claw bot that's used by most of this business that really ravaged the internet on automating your entire
Yes,
workstation, right?
correct. That
So
one.
yes. So it actually went through a couple of branding phases. I'm not too sure. It went through Mothbot, I think. I think now it's Claude, but it went through a different naming
Anyway, yeah,
phases.
yeah, yeah. But it's, I mean, the thing is, Claw is famous, according what, we've seen. It is open source.
Yeah.
I mean, basically you can use it, but also you can actually install it in your computer
Yeah.
and make it automated. So what's the difference between, for instance, because from my non tech savvy point of view, I have no idea what's the difference in between these and the others, for instance.
So this Clawbot is something that you can install in your machine. Um, and it's able to have access to your files.
Okay.
So you can, so you and you don't necessarily have to be in front of your computer to interact with it. So that's one advantage. So to give you a simple idea, so I know I vaguely mentioned that you don't need to be in front of your computer, but the way that you do it is you connect it to one of your messaging services, like maybe WhatsApp, Telegram, and even email, and you message with your bot. And this is essentially an agent, right? Then that's why I say so. This agent has access to your files and certain applications that you have given access to. And then you can say, okay, look at my files from last week regarding this particular subject, and go ahead and write an email and send it to maybe John. So you just send a message, you're not in front of your computer, and it's able to do that for you. So it's an agent
Wow.
living in your machine 24/7. It's listening to you.
That's crazy, man. So I didn't know. I mean, I never used it
I
yet,
mean, yeah,
but
I mean, to be fair, I haven't used it either because there's some uh, privacy concerns
yes.
because it's actually there have been reports where crucial data have been leaked by hacking this system. So it was, since it was open source, right? So we discussed the term open source.
Yeah,
So when
okay.
we say open source, the code is publicly available for everyone to look at. So if a hacker, and not the good kind, so there are the good kinds and there's the bad kinds. If a hacker really finds a point where a vulnerability that they can exploit, they will go for it and take maybe crucial data from companies that need to keep their data private, maybe take your photos if possible, and then maybe use it as ransomware. So that's a privacy concern. And for us, in my previous company, we were prohibited of installing it in our work machines because of the privacy concerns involved.
Wow. So it's basically you have like a Trojan horse inside your
Yeah,
computer,
and you
right?
never know.
So you never know what is gonna happen then.
You never know, and
So
so.
would you recommend maybe you as an engineer, let's say, like small business, right? It's say, okay, I want to have my own bot, but not from open
Mhm.
source, create my own one. Have your own version of Claw. Could you do that?
I
Or not
mean,
really?
yeah. So usually when we start, if I'm building one myself, what we would do is we wouldn't start from scratch because it's all so Clawbot, and then there was a few other agents similar to Claw that came in. So what we would do is we would look at what's going on and find, okay, what are the faults with it, and then we would fix those faults and then implement it in our systems. But since it can be really useful, especially for businesses, the way that I recommend and the way that most of the engineers recommend using such an agent is giving it its own isolated environment and rather than having it have access to everything that you have in your machine.
Of course. And is it too expensive to build something like this?
Um, so like I said, you wouldn't necessarily have to start from scratch. You
Okay.
can use so we can essentially use Clo itself, and then you can have that in your machine. So to have it running in your machine, it wouldn't cost you. Just that you would have a bill coming from, if you're using OpenAI, you would have a bill from OpenAI coming in. Okay, here's the month. So that's charged on how you use it. So based on the number of tokens that you have generated and sent to OpenAI, that's how you'll be charged. So keeping the OpenAI bill away, running it in your machine wouldn't be that expensive.
Okay. That's great. Yeah, thank you for that. You know, one thing that keeps coming up is prompting, right? So, how important do you think is prompting when using AI, and what makes a good prompt?
So the common language, so I'll start with a good analogy. Um, so right now, you and I, we are communicating in a way that the both of us can understand. And if I don't provide enough context or maybe enough pointers that you can grasp, you will not be able to comprehend what I'm saying, right? So prompting is essentially being a good communicator. And if you're a good communicator, you can get the best out of an AI system. So prompting is everything. So what I want to clarify is prompting is everything. So you can get a good response by just saying, okay, find me. I mean, you can get a bad response by just phrasing something very mildly without clearly explaining your expectations, the guidelines, what you want it formatted as, and what you need to search for. If you haven't specified that information, you're going to get a bad response from the AI. And that's not really the AI's fault, because like I said, these are just predictors of text. So if you don't give enough context on how to proceed, these systems are going to give you bad responses. So prompting is really everything.
So that's why you usually are recommended to start with act as a expert in whatever, right? So you're
Exactly.
basically
I mean,
giving an AI a role, right?
exactly. That's exactly the reason why you're giving it a role. So you say, you are, if you're working in maybe writing an email, you are an expert email writing writer. You are required to take my idea which is given to you in point form, and expand it to an email that is explainable to this person, and then I explain about which person that is and what interaction I have with them. So if I explain more about what my expectations are within that prompt, I'm going to get a one-off response that I don't have to refine much more. But it's better to do a refinement rather than just taking the first response that you get out of the AI. But that's exactly the reason that we start with the first. That's why we start with the role of setting the the um, the framework of how the AI needs to respond. So, and then you go ahead describing the rest of the instructions. So, moving a little bit towards technical terms, we have different prompting styles. So I wouldn't go deeper towards it, but one of the common most prompting formats is called Ryzen. And that's exactly what you just mentioned. So first you mention the role, then you give out the instructions, then you lay out the steps that it needs to take, then you also mention the end goal, and you narrow it down. That's what Ryzen stands for. R for role, I for instructions, S for steps, E for end goal, and N for narrowing it down. So, like I said, I will not get too deep into how you're going to formulate that prompt. But if you lay out your format, if you lay out your prompt within that Ryzen architecture prompt, you're going to get a good response from the other.
Wow, fantastic, man. Thank you. That's a really good tip for our audience. So now from, experience, what do you think are the most common mistakes people make when they start using AI?
Thinking of AI as an expert is the biggest mistake that people make. And I'm not saying just general users, even engineers that I've met are trying to treat the AI as an expert. And that's where we fail. Because you should treat the AI as much more like a junior collaborator that you need to explicitly give out what needs to be done and what should not be done. And that's one of the main mistakes that beginners make with AI systems. So coming back, it really brings it down to prompting. So if you don't prompt your thoughts out clearly and you just give it out vague instructions, that's where you're going to be disappointed with using AI. And yes, people have really left out using AI systems, saying, okay, this is not going to work out and it was not the fault with the AI system, it was yours to begin with.
Fantastic. Actually, that leads to my same, my following question. It is, what would you say then AI is actually very good at right now? And where that does it still fall short? Because it's not an
So
expert, is it?
exactly, it's not an expert as you would expect it to be. So that's what from the research, and that's what we are trying to achieve. But um, what it's good at right now is doing tasks that can be clearly laid out
Okay.
by you, right? So if you can clearly lay out what needs to be done yourself, then that's something that the AI can do. But what it can't do is it's not able to solve huge and complex problems like mathematical reasoning. You cannot give a huge block of math problem and ask it to solve. That's just an example, but applying it into different areas, you can't expect to give an entire business problem at once and ask it to solve it. That's not something that it can do. I mean, it can do at certain times, but you will not be able to verify it. So the way that you can break it down is make if it's something that's repeatable and something that you can lay out this instructions clearly to, that's something that an AI system can do. But if it's something that the path is a little bit more wobbly rather than deterministic, that's where an AI system can fail.
Yeah, that's great, man. Thank you. And I think nowadays people are even like using AI as a verb, no? Because, it's like, oh, I need to do this. So AI this thing, or, things like that, which is crazy, man. In a very short, like, period of time, as you said before, you started to know about AI, like, properly from 2022, which is like not long ago, right? That was the
No,
basic LLMs, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It has come into our vocabulary so much that we've started to create new terminologies around it. And like you said, AI is a verb these days. To go ahead, come on, man. Why don't you just AI? Just like we used to say, go ahead and Google it. We're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saying, go ahead and AI it.
100%, man. Look, there is also like a lot of hype around what AI can do. From an engineering point of view, what surprised you the most about its real capabilities versus what people expect?
So well, that's a tough question, thinking about it. But what what really so it's not much of a modern, a recent perspective of mine, but throughout my years, what really surprised me per se is now these models are going to be text predictors in a sense, right? Um, and giving it enough context should make it be accurate and helpful and creative enough so that you can use it in your systems. And this is the same when we are doing engineering these days. We use the system, we use AI to do the coding for us, right? So we just say, okay, go ahead, we select a particular piece of file in our code base, and we say, okay, look at this file, go ahead and make these changes. And we expect it to be accurate if we give the right amount of information, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But the problem with next token predicting is that you cannot make it deterministic enough to reproduce it.
Of course.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So you give enough information and you expect it to be accurate, but that's not how these systems work, because it's trying to do a prediction at most, right? So I've faced instances where I would expect it to give me the correct output, correct code based on what I've given as context and what I want it to do. But I've seen instances where it doesn't give what I want, and I end up doing the task myself.
Yeah, of course.
So we expect it to be accurate at most, and this all-knowing, highly expert individual in a sense. But if we treat it that way, we are going to end up surprised almost always, because you're going to find some mistake somewhere if you don't verify everything. So in an engineering workflow, something that I practice these days is whatever output I get out of an AI, I verify it myself before pushing it towards a high stake environment.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like a double check it, no?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. This is what we should be doing then. No,
Yeah.
like as you said, we cannot really assume he's an expert. He's like, as you
Yeah.
put it, a junior like employee
Agree.
that he has
Yeah.
to be double checked. That's true.
Exactly.
So let's go to a big picture. Let's zoom out slightly. Do you think we are truly in an AI revolution?
So I hope you're not referring to the Hollywood AI revolution, right? Where AI is going to take over the world.
No,
But
no, come on.
no, it's just humor aside.
It could be, no? Because there are some, conspiracy theories that they think
Yeah.
AI is gonna come and it's gonna be
No,
like this
no,
kind of George Orwell, novel where it's gonna like
no, really.
humanize itself.
Exactly. Someone at, I mean, some at his, I had someone asking me, do we really need to be nice to AI so that someday when they take over the world, they'll be nice back to us?
I mean, to be
I said,
honest, like AI is super agreeable, right?
well, yeah. I mean,
It it is created
exactly.
to like tap your shoulder all the time.
Yeah, it actually gives you a pat in the back to make you, boost up your ego or confidence and whatnot,
Yeah,
right?
it's pat you on the back. It's true. So, do you think there is an AI revolution or no?
Yeah, so the humor side, we are really in a turning point of how we actually do things, right? Um, so I'll actually, from my experience, so since I'm from an engineering background, in the earlier days, we used to write the code ourselves. We used to look at different files and we write the code ourselves. But the way that it has changed now, the workflows is it's very rare that an engineer really writes the code themselves. Because these AI systems and models have become so advanced and so intelligent that you actually let it know your expectations, but be clear about it. Again, we need to go back to the prompting part. So be clear about it, and then you get your work done. So it has changed the way that I work. I don't code the way that I used to. I just communicate with it in a natural language. I mean, you would have experiences. You don't go and do Google search on your own these days. It's very rare that a person does a Google search. We
Yeah,
are doing the search through an AI system, and
100%.
I think that's the start of a revolution, because internet itself, so the way that we used to search the internet, that was a revolution in itself. The internet really changed how we share information. But now we are at another evolution step of information. So it's actually in an information revolution, because the way that we access information has become way faster than it has ever been, right? So like just how the internet made it really accessible for everyone around the globe. Now we are finding facts and resources just by using ChatGPT and asking it to go ahead, do me a deep research. You collect all of the resources that would take you about months to do, right?
Mm.
The AI system does it for you. So it's actually doing a great revolution in how we access information.
Yeah, 100%, man. I do think like this is just the beginning and of a new paradigm, if you wish,
Yeah.
because it's
Mhm.
gonna change the workforce completely, bro. I mean, it has
Definitely.
already and it will. I mean, and also like something which my colleagues in academia doesn't get it is inevitable, bro. It
Yeah.
is. I think I have the feeling that like, you know, oh no, we need to like double check that they don't use in AI to create reports and
Uh-huh.
create essays and so on. And sometimes I don't get into these debates, but I'm just thinking myself, maybe we could be more creative and
Mhm.
perhaps offer another type of system to evaluate or another type of system to do like work in teams more interesting rather than
Yeah.
the typical essay that we've been doing for the last, I don't know, 60 years or 70
Yeah.
years, right? So but it's
No, definitely.
definitely inevitable, man.
It's inevitable, yeah.
So from your opinion, how important is it to have some kind of global framework or guidance for how AI is developed and used? Because you were mentioned about this ethical thing, no? Even now,
Exactly.
I don't know if in Sri Lanka is happening. I was the other day talking to my friend from Malaysia, and they have an AI national office. Is that Sri
Mhm.
Lanka also has it or no yet?
Sri Lanka is actually starting to establish an AI framework, and how what guidelines that we have around the nation to use it. But it's not yet widely established.
So do you think it's important to have a framework to work with?
Yes, so definitely. Because um, when we build systems that are going to impact not just one part of the world and impact different areas around the globe, builders and engineers from when we build those systems, we need to be concerned about different guidelines. If we are working for European nations, we have a different guideline set. If we are working for the North Americas, it's a different set of guidelines. And then in China, it's different. Australia, it's different. So around different parts of the world, we have different set of laws and different set of guidelines on how these systems need to behave. And that can be challenging when we are building these systems, right? And that can create friction from product to usability. So you build these systems, but when it comes to usability, it has to go through additional hoops so that everybody in the world gets access to it. And that's one of the reasons that we need a global framework
Yeah.
where the approach is harmonized. It's harmonized enough so that the builders can get these systems from development to the final product that the users can use equally and
100%.
without disparity.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. For some of our listeners who wants to use AI better in their work or in their businesses, what are the 2 or 3 simple tips that you would give them? I know you before you kind of like walk around
Touch them.
it. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I think since we walk around so many concepts, laying it out as 3 different tips would be much more concrete, I guess. So number one, you definitely have to treat AI as a collaborator and not an expert. And you need to make sure you lay out your instructions clearly. So that's number one. Number two, make sure you break whatever problem that you're solving into smaller, manageable problems as you would do it yourself. Don't expect the AI to do something that you are not able to do without breaking down into small problems. That's number two. Number three, AI is not an all-knowing system. So make sure that you validate the outputs and then make sure before it goes to critical scenarios that it's um, always what you need it to go to.
Fantastic.
Validate
Yeah, I
the
like it.
outputs.
So treat it as a collaborator. Always start from small problem solving. And the third one is validate the outcome.
Yeah.
Fantastic, man. And finally, how can people tell if they are actually using AI well rather than just experimenting with it?
If you feel like if you're productive than you used to be when you're using AI, then you're using it right. But if you feel like, okay, this is really slowing me down, you're still practicing how to work around it. That's the number one key indicator whether you're using the AI well. So if you're able to do your task productively, get consistent outputs that you can use in a real world setting, that's when you know that you're using AI well.
Fantastic, man. Sachith, that's all. Thank you so much, man, for giving up your time, sharing your engineering perspective. I also love the fact that you also coming from Sri Lanka, which help us to understand how the world is going on, you know. It's not like super Eurocentric or Western centric. It's just to make us realize that what is happening, it happens everywhere, right? Which is
Yes.
for me is one of the big learning lessons, man. Thank you so much, man.
It was really nice, Andres. Thank you so much for inviting me. It has really been a pleasure sharing uh, part of my experiences. And this journey is really new to me as well. I'm learning myself because AI is evolving way faster than any technical innovation that has ever come.
Fantastic, man. Okay, thank you so
All
much,
right.
and thank you everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, goodbye. Ciao.
Bye-bye.